asking. What we use in our prioritization matrix, remember in the pie chart, the prioritization matrix?
Yeah.
We have almost everybody. So, this is the part where we're gonna see if, like, we're circling around our top 50-ish, right? We're awfully close to feeling like this is as good as we're gonna get. There's gonna be a final reckoning when we sort of see how we feel about the overall plan. But we're very, very close to our top 50-ish with all the things we did today in it. Now we're gonna try what it feels like if we can tighten up to even closer to top 10-ish. And one of the reasons we're doing this is when we went out and did all that public engagement, many of you participated in that. Like night after night after night, people said, it's great to have a lot of things. And it's very helpful among those, a lot of things, to have some clarity of message of what is rising to the top. And what we all need to have top of mind. Again, we're not getting rid of our top 50. They're still an important part of this climate action plan. We're not even getting rid of the 240 something, all of them, right? And it's important that we signal to the legislature, to the world, to the administration, to ourselves, among all of these are things that are really rising to the top. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about criteria. GWSA puts out criteria, and we've used those in the subgroups, the subcommittees, in how they did prioritization. Jane has a nice slide deck that talks about what those different prioritization pieces are. If I were to do them from memory, it's cost effectiveness, equity in terms of a just transition. It's what are the other ones, Jane?
Technical feasibility,
Feasibility,
impact,
impact,
benefits.
co-benefits, right? What we're talking about earlier on co-benefits.
Greenhouse gas. And we
For
also
mitigation.
defined it.
Right.
For,
For the emissions reductions, impact is the ability to reduce emissions. For the other areas of resilience, adaptation, impact is sometimes harder to nail down with such precision. But it's the ability of how well prepared is Vermont for climate hazards. Okay, so we know what the GWSA says. I'm curious as well, when you think about what are the things that rise to the surface, when you want to make a selection of top 10, what's important to you as you're going through and thinking like, oh yeah, if I was in an elevator with someone and I had time for just telling them 10, these would be my 10, right? One per floor, not in Vermont. Okay, but anyway, you know where I'm saying, it's like we instinctually go somewhere. Like, what is it that's driving us? That let's talk about it. Let's raise it up to the surface. Then we're going to run the exercise. Then we're going to talk a little bit, and then we'll run it again. Okay, so criteria wise, Jared, I know that you wanted to say a few things.
Yeah, and part of this actually goes back to where we started this morning. And what are we trying to do today? What is our role individually? What is our role as a council? So reflecting on that and how I and we are showing up, one of the things I was thinking about is that, you know, I am not here to, and I imagine many other people feel this way as well, not here to represent any person, any appointing authority, any branch of government, rather here to use independent expertise and judgment to serve the state of Vermont and the laws and people thereof. So I do think it's, you know, we've said that we're familiar with the Solutions Act, but as we get into this prioritization exercise for the Vermont Climate Action Plan, I think it is valuable and important to pause and just read the one sentence. So subsection 592 of the Global Warming Solutions Act that gives direction on the Vermont Climate Action Plan. 592A sets the due date. 592B gets to the heart of it. And this is what the law says. The plan shall set forth the specific initiatives, programs, and strategies, including regulatory and legislative changes necessary to achieve the state's greenhouse gas emissions reduction requirements pursuant to section 578 of this title, and build resilience to prepare the state's communities, infrastructure, and economy to adapt to the current and anticipated effects of climate change. And so for me, that's a reminder that, you know, personally, there may be parts of the Solutions Act that I wish were faster or slower or stronger or different. But I don't think that's our role as a counselor or as a council. I think it is to follow the law of the state as it exists and follow the charge given to us in law in terms of what the plan shall set forth. And so that's going to be my primary lens. And I think about what these 50 need to be lifted up that complies with the recommendations necessary to achieve the emissions reduction requirements laid out in law and to adapt to the current and anticipated effects in terms of building resilience.
Right. So that's sort of a core piece of what's important as you're thinking about what to lift up to draw specific attention to. Awesome. What else? Is there anything else that important to mention as before we just do this exercise of what it feels like to pick up a top 10 here? Anything else? Yeah, well,
I like the idea of things having a proven track record of success and being scalable and having a reasonable sense, a provable sense that an investment of public funds will be realized in said success in the near term.
great.
I didn't say that, but I'm glad someone's able to read.
Okay, great. Right. So it feels,
I think building on what Jared cited there, you know, the act does go on to talk about cost effectiveness and technical feasibility. In sub bullets under that heading that we read from, and I think it's important not to lose sight of those components of the evaluation as well.
right. Absolutely. Yep. Anything else? Yeah, Chris?
No, I mean, this is maybe potentially low hanging fruit, but, and I can't remember which section it's in, but the whole, use the compact settlement word just for a minute. I know David hates that. But, you know, that's kind of an easy one because that's the state, the compact, maintaining Vermont's historic settlement pattern of compact settlements run by rural countryside. I mean, that is the primary planning goal for the entire state and all municipalities. Everything falls from that. And so with Act 181 and really even like Act 56 and the Home Act and Act 181, everything is kind of oriented around that. And I guess I would just advocate for like the long range to achieve basically a lot of the goals of this plan, especially in terms of future development. We could find a way to kind of identify that as, you know, in the top 10. We're kind of already directing ourselves to do that anyway, even, you know, just a climate action plan. So not describing this well because I'm tired, but but basically, you know, we've invested so much statutory language. I mean, including this because it talks about smart growth, right? And the comprehensive energy plan talks about compact settlement, the long range transportation plan, everything does. So to my mind, just so much hinges on that I would just advocate for those kinds of elements to be included in the top 10. Not that we're advocating for that yet, but I'm just kind of trying to say how that ties so many things together. But the goal is, right, as you develop that, make it climate resilient and adaptive. Don't keep doing it in harm's way.
And I think, Chris, just so everyone is navigating this document well, we used to have compact settlement all by itself, right, in the cross-cutting issues, and then we kind of folded it into rural resilience and into the transportation stuff. And I just want to, everybody should know like where it is now. And I think it's in,
I lost track of it.
there's a number of places it's in, like number 11 is continue to implement Act 181, right? By increasing investment in walkable livable communities. But it's also in number 10, right above it, increase investment in municipalities. Sorry, in the rural resilience numbers. Among other places, that's where it kind of really lands, is in those ones like number 10, investment in municipalities to expand, blah, 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 to support compact development.
Transportation number 3.
in transportation number 3, exactly. That's where they went into. So if that is a sort of core planning principle, that's where you're gonna find it in this plan. Okay. Other things that folks want to shout out before we do a round 1 of this? Again, like I said, we're gonna do 2 rounds. Counselors online, just welcome you to chime in too. I see Eric's still here, I'm still here. Okay. All right. So, can we talk about the practicalities of running this exercise? There is a QR code here in the room. And if you're online, folks, you have it in your email. Look for an email from Charlotte with the link to this.
Be passing this around, Dave?
There's like 5 around, so yeah, they should be more or less close by. This is where you need to pull out your phones. If you're not super familiar with how to use QR codes, you point the camera of your phone at it. Don't take a picture, but wait till a little link pops up. And if it's an iPhone, it's usually a little yellow link at the bottom, and you click on that yellow link at the bottom. That's how the QR code works.
You need an app for this, or is it just?
It'll take you to a website. Are you guys both in?
I'm in and I'm ready to done.
Okay, great.
Is it not limited to 10?
Oh, yeah, so it will limit it to 10. So here's the thing. It will let you select more than 10, but when you click done, it'll say error. So you got to count as you go. It'll only let you put in 10, or excuse me.
Like that?
Is this anonymous or are we putting our names in?
I mean, this is so random anyway, just to push back. Like,
Yes.
It's already such a forced process that we haven't had a lot of discussion around. To not even try a winnowing that is not just forced at 10 feels fun.
Your call
Yep.
has been forwarded to an automated 2 4 8 0 1 8 3 0 is not available. The mailbox is full and cannot accept any message.
I got it.
It's possible.
I'm not sure.
Mute.
Okay, great. Yeah, Liz, I hear your concern on that. And, whether we pick 10 or 15 or 20, it's kind of arbitrary, right?
Right, but that's
Um,
why it just
we
lets
have-
you do it.
The reason we're doing 10 is that from the very beginning, there was this look at the state hazard mitigation plan, which did do roughly 10 and then roughly 50-ish. And then they had their bigger one was like 120, 130 or something. So that was kind of the model. And I recognize 10 is arbitrary. Why not 9? Why not 14? We're trying 10 and see what happens.
What counselors are limited to voting to.
Yeah.
Might be that there's like strong consensus, when everybody does 10 around 12.
Exactly.
It doesn't limit us to 10 at the end.
Correct.
Just limits you to voting for 10, so.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's why I've always said 10-ish, because it may be that there's like a clear cut. Okay, so you do have to count. Apologize on that. You're gonna have to count. So folks know, Carrick gave me his top 10. I'm putting his in for him. You'll notice that at the end of the cross-sector mitigation is a number 12. It says new recommendation about exploring geothermal networks. So that's available.
Modified after I put my answers in.
Typically, there's a confirmation that says, thanks for completing it or something.
Yeah.
Does that happen? Didn't see anything like that at the end.
If it didn't give you an error, you should be good.
Cool.
If you want me to look, I can take a peek at that.
Dave, we were supposed to put our name.
Yeah, it says, it has a name.
Doesn't force it though.
Oh, it's not required.
Yeah.
Let's put your name in. Yeah, please, yeah, put your name in, please, because, that, just allows some traceability on it.
And as you select it, it doesn't show anything about the number, so you should just assume that the number you selected was the way that they were ranked, that it spits it out in the same order that you selected.
Not a ranking, it's just a.
There's no ranking.
There's no ranking it. Oh, it was more agonizing than it had to be. Never mind.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry.
Through
Yeah.
in order.
Yeah, there's no ranking.
Thank you. Here, I'll do it.
It's torture.
I can't even go into a restaurant and order from.
I know, it's just like, you have those really long menus, you're like, could you just give me less options, please?
I just got the explanation from Jared. It's so much clearer.
That on your,
I don't know where it got messed up. I'll fix it.
That?
It's gonna be easy.
Okay.
I was gonna say, should we talk about it so we don't all vote and leave it out? It's just.
We can do it on round two. How about
It's
that?
just that they're.
Yeah,
all
we
right.
do it on round two.
Perfect.
If you guys can just,
Stay focused.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Steve.
it's hard to count to 10.
Right, put in my 10, it came up.
Not reprioritize, it'll say if there's a problem, it'll say this question requires an answer. This is, if you don't put in the right number, like I put in one too many, and it gives you that error. If it doesn't give you that area, then you're all set. But did you put one in? You already submitted it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it should be fine. If you put it in, it should be fine.
You're done. Not with
Oh, geez, no.
not everything.
Tell me about it. Is anybody having like a technical meltdown and would it help with anything?
New one.
Existential meltdown?
Just attach
Yeah.
there.
That thing was modified by the user.
You had to, I did too, you had to re-enter the whole thing, which I
I don't know quite what happened there.
think it was modified after. Wow. Okay.
It's clever.
Oh, so did mine not come through? Because that's the weird message I got too.
Heaven's sakes. Then it did not go through. If you got a weird message, then you have to redo, and I apologize. I'm not quite sure what happened there.
Are you able to see the?
I can
what's
see.
come through?
Yeah, I probably should be able to see
You
what's,
get a cookies note if it goes through successfully.
yeah.
Last thing you get is not good cookies, bad cookies.
Mine, David, or I need to do?
Give me one second. Yeah, I have Jared's, Ryan's, Chris Campany's, David Mears, Kelly Klein, Lindsay, Shayla, Julie, Will, Rich. I don't have Joey.
And you have mine.
Who's that?
Carrick.
Carrick, I got yours. Yep, Carrick's it in. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. I got you, Carrick. You're in.
Or driving home, what?
I honestly don't know what happened there. I'm sorry. There must have been some like little tweak that happened. Dream. Sorry for that glitch. Oh, I did. Oh, all right, we'll wait for a few more. Not. Oh,
It's got this. Taking us, giving my opinion about events.
I think that's.
that's
what-
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that means it's accepted. Let me double check and.
Okay.
Let me refresh my screen. It could be that. Joey, did yours go in okay?
I mean, I got the same thing.
So. Got step now. Joey, I got you. Andrew, I got you. Okay, I think we have everybody. All right. So Charlotte, if you're listening, do you want to try to share your screen, particularly with the table?
Yes, I'll pull that up now.
Right. So there's a couple ways to share this. One is with a table and whether it was like a pretty little graphic, but honestly, the table's a little easier to read.
Can you see this?
We can see it, but we're not down to the table yet. Here's the table, folks. And so just take a minute here. So these are like on the far right-hand side, there's the number of mentions that got. And so you can sort of look for breakpoints of numbers of mentions. Again, this is round one, folks. This is not definitive. We're just doing a test here. So if you were to do the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the top 9 are kind of a breakpoint, right? For instance, right? Or then a whole bunch of others got a similar weighting. So let's look at what those top 9 are just for a moment. Weatherization, the one we were just talking about, right? Workforce, the new revenue sources one, Cabin Invest, maintain the permanent flood resilient communities fund. And then landscape connectivity, the conservation one. The number 6, which is one of the utility ones, the electricity ones. It talks about the way electrification happens. And then the first Ag and Eco one with all the existing programs. And then vehicle electrification. So those are kind of a natural top 9, you might say. Very close behind are a whole bunch of other things, right? The other transportation one, the multimodal one, some of the, another one of the electricity ones, the load management one, the geothermal one, the funding energy education efficiency programs, invest in municipal infrastructure to support compact development, funding for resilience equipment, supplies and services, the one that we're talking about, making sure the language is clear. And then incentivize sustainable wood-based construction materials. Like those were sort of close-ish behind. Quick curiosity, as you look at this, there's like a top 9. Anything that jumps out at you when you look at this list? Anything you might want to make a case of this all over again?
Hang on, I'll get you some.
Are you able to scroll down further, David? so
Oh,
you
right
can
there.
see what-
Yeah.
At least all the 5s.
Yeah.
Is it possible to make it a little bit bigger?
Gail, do you want to sit like,
Well, closer.
yeah, I feel badly. I'm like, or I can turn, we could get the person. in here.
If you join the team meeting on your computer, you can look at it, right? Like, that's what I'm doing. I can.
I need it.
Jael? Jael?
Yeah.
If you join the Teams meeting, you can see it right on your laptop.
Just make sure you don't join audio.
Yeah.
So now you can see the others that, where they got multiple votes. And I want to stress, like, it was hard getting to top 50. Like, that was no joke to go from 270 or 240 or whatever to top 50. Like, that was hard, right? So all those top 50 are important. That's not what it's at stake here. It's what's at stake is there a emerging consensus among you all about a top single digit kind of thing? Yeah.
Struck me about the top 10 was no cohesive direction.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let's look at that again.
Kind of,
Say a little bit more about that.
well, I mean, so weatherization for LMI, which is good and important. Implement climate ready workforce, so and revenue sources to start fund, so I don't really see a plan or I don't really see a cohesive strategy there, which is not, I wouldn't necessarily expect that to kind of everybody just selecting their random top 10, but it feels like they're and there's a lot on funding, but one of the things that just struck me too is like there's nothing prioritized to get you to what you are funding, like to get you to the priorities of the things to be funded. You know what I'm saying? But like, there's a lot there about money, except for weatherization for LMI households, workforce initiative, but it just feels like.
Yeah, I think if
Not a
you spend a little time,
Observation is.
yeah, I bet I could make a little narrative if I spent a little time with this about like how these things might hold together. Kelly and then Jared.
One thing that I did notice is that I think if you looked at the different categories that those top fall into, and think back to what the public did when they did their voting with their chips.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that the percentage of things in each category kind of aligns with where people put their chips. They put more across sector, then cross-cutting, then rural resilience and ag and eco were kind of tied, and I only see one rural resilience on the front. But more evenly split between those categories than I would have anticipated, especially since 10 doesn't divide easily by 4. I mean, it does if you like fractions, but.
Right, so there's a mix of areas, right? Okay. Jared, you got your hand up and then Rich?
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I think we could all say this, right? Like, I'm sure that our top 10 or whatever number would be different than this. And there's some that aren't in this top 9 that I'm like, oh, it feels wrong that it's not there. But that said, stepping out of my own shoes and into like, what is best for this plan and the council, I think it's striking that not only what Kelly said, but that not just like the relative balance, but that everyone is represented. We've got cross-sector, we've got rural resilience and adaptation, we've got ag and eco, we've got cross-cutting. And so to me, especially hearing what you just said, David, reminding us of what we know, which is this does not take away the other recommendations that we've worked on. Those are going forward, and this isn't necessarily the strategy, the distillation of the strategy of the whole climate action plan. These are some of the most important recommendations to lift up, to highlight and give attention to. My initial reaction is, personally, there's some things I wish were there, but I think this can work. I think it's relatively well balanced and a decent reflection of some key things to highlight.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's well said, and this is a list that I could live with as well. However, the 5 position is meriting an additional vote, I would argue. If we have like a dead heat with 5 or 6 things that all came in at 5, it would be interesting to try that part of it one more time to get to our true top 10, other than arbitrarily just picking the first of the 5s or whatever.
How many of the
Yeah.
how many counselors out of 23 participated in this exercise?
I think it's at 18.
18 now.
It just changed.
It just changed again.
Curious. If we refresh, is that gonna give us a different look at this on those 5s?
Refresh and say 19, unless you refresh the whole thing.
We'll find out.
Refresh. So my thought was that we could have a little conversation just like this and then run the whole thing again. And see if anybody wants to change a little bit with their
We look at
based on here.
all of the ones that got 5, that tied for 10. That's the 10th spot, right? Ones that got.
I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, if you scroll down just a tiny bit, Charlotte, you can look at all the 5s. Yeah, perfect.
Interesting. Ton of them tied.
Yeah. Other transportation, the other electricity, the grid stuff, the grid load management stuff, geothermal, energy education efficiency programs, municipal infrastructure.
Where, Shayla, can you give us the better words around resilient equipment, supplies and
Yeah.
services?
Just emailed it to you. I don't know if you want to pull it up on your screen or I can read it. What would be better?
How long is it? I can pull up my screen.
Is the,
I'll pull it up. You know what, Charlotte, if you can stop sharing for 1 second, I'm just gonna pull up some language on the screen.
Big, David.
Turn off your camera.
It's like the Wizard of Oz.
Wow, did I sign off this?
I can read it. I can read it.
Yeah, do you mind just reading it? Yeah.
Provide funding for equipment, supplies, and services that improve resilience and reduce the health impact of climate-related hazards for income qualifying households needing extra assistance. The intent is to provide financial support for resilience needs in a similar way to existing financial support for energy efficiency. For example, through heat pumps and EV rebates. Resilience equipment and strategies should address health risks related to flooding, power outages, extreme temperatures, hazardous air quality, humidity, vector-borne diseases, and other climate-related hazards. And then I have specific examples and topic areas.
I put up on the screen, it's a little small.
So it is not about weatherization. It is about the different things that result from extreme weather that are public health related.
And especially mitigating heat.
A lot of heat related stuff or humidity. air quality issues, but also things like vector-borne diseases.
I'm sure everybody knows this, Fame, but you know, as much damage as the floods and other things do, the heat's what kills people.
So these are great things. My question is, okay, does this meet, and we could take everything in this. Don't feel like I'm targeting this, but I'm trying to ask myself the question. Does this meet the goals in the sense of, you know, not emissions, doesn't build billions? Maybe it does.
It's a response.
Maybe it's a response. It's a response. I think I'm trying to figure out where does it fit in?
So this is like a classic public health kind of intervention to prevent immediate and future injury and death. Right, like
From
it's
climate hazards.
from climate hazard.
And so bear with me why I'm asking this.
It's not, but it's not an emissions reduction.
Right, right. So the reason I'm asking this is because it's one of the ones that got a 5.
Yeah.
So if I were looking at all the ones with the 5, I would be asking that tough question to each of them. Is like, does it tackle the question we're trying to answer, which is, you know, that does it achieve the goals of the, right, exactly. So that was where my brain is going on all of them, is like, are there any we can immediately eliminate as they're a really great thing to have, but maybe they fit under something else in state government, or I don't know, that we can.
Totally
like-
fair.
Boom.
Yeah, and I think Shelley, what you would say is something like this speaks to how we make communities more resilient, right? Because households, families, individuals are more able to withstand the climate hazards that are coming, or that have come and will be continuing to come, if they have this kind of thing, right? Less likely to die, less likely to have suffer injury. So this is public health response.
Like, extra power for people in meds that need refrigeration.
Yep.
That kind of,
Okay.
no, it's not does nothing to reduce climate change.
Okay,
It's the other type measure.
okay, that's super helpful.
Want to go back to sharing the, I can share them too, Charlotte, if you want. I'll just go back and forth here for a second because I have my screen up.
Okay, I'm happy to, whatever you want.
Just do it for a second now, and then, I'm cognizant of the time, so I think if we want to run this again, we should do it finish.
Yeah.
I want to offer a observation and then a recommendation. So the observation is, now that we've seen this whole list, I think there actually may be more valuable information in the first round of voting than in a second round, which could lead to strategic voting of like trying to get one up. Or but looking at that top 9, we've got 3 cross-sector, 3 cross-cutting, 2 ag and eco, and 1 rural resilience and adaptation. I would be comfortable saying.
You cross-cut it?
I thought there were.
4 cross-sector, 2 cross-cutting, 2
Okay,
ag-
yes, yeah.
1 rural resilience.
So in the interest, we had also said, trying to lift up and identify priorities across the set of recommendations. What if we took these top 9 and added a 10th from rural resilience and adaptation, so that every one of our subject areas has at least 2 recommendations that get lifted up? And so this second round of voting is just, let's identify the second rural resilience and adaptation thing that,
Sort of maybe from the 4 that have 5 and 4 votes.
Yeah.
Number 10.
Okay.
Rural, and
10, 10, 11, 12, and 15.
Can I give, I sit on the committee that reviews the flood resilient communities fund projects as part of the hazard mitigation grant project review committee. I've just texted Stephanie Smith because I came in later after the program started. A lot of what we approve are buyouts. There are some scoping studies, other kind of larger scale impactful projects, but a lot of them are buyouts that under the FEMA hazard mitigation grant funding don't qualify. So like river corridor property, which is good and important, but it's not particularly transformational. And just that's not a pro or a con. I'm just saying that could be a legit priority. I'm not sure that it does exactly what everybody, I just heard back from Stephanie. To know there are other projects there too, but buyouts were the priority for us. That's why we're ranking so.
Number is that RA number?
That's the one that was ranked
Number 3.
I mean, I would.
And
do that.
maintain so our direction, the direction that we took as a hazard mitigation grant project review committee, which included that, the priority, so there are others, but we had prioritized buyouts. So we could always change the prioritization, but that's one of the reasons why I didn't rank it higher, was because it's really important for Vermonters, like especially to get them out of harm's way and to help them not be saddled with a mortgage for a property that may not exist anymore. It's really critical. But it's not, may not be as transformative as what.
Not reducing emissions.
Chris, when you think about the things,
I mean, it's not reducing emissions, not necessarily radically improving our resilience and adaptation.
I don't think we should limit ourselves to thinking that it has to be as it exists today. That was just, that round was the.
I was just,
No,
I'm not complaining. I was
You
just,
said that. You said it could be different, and that's what I think of from Expand, and that's, I definitely voted for that one, because I think it's an incredibly critical.
That's helpful to me. So what I think I'm hearing you say, and you are an expert in this, Chris, so I'm leaning on you a little bit, is like, what I'm hearing you say is like, while you're happy to see the RRA in there, and I think that that's what we heard in the public process, is that the public really did appreciate RRA and we wanted that in there. That wouldn't necessarily be the one that you feel we need to put up in the top because it's kind of happening already. There's kind of energy in there that maybe there's some others down below that would actually get more to the heat of the goals of the GWSA that we might consider thinking about when we revote.
kind of, I would elevate the RIS stuff because that's more inclusive and broader based. The flood resilient community funding is actually,
List for those, yeah. Okay.
I forget which number it was, but it's the one that was talking about coming up with the funding streams. It was the one we put before 12. It was the one we put before the state prioritization list. It was, oh, no.
I'll tell you right now.
Sorry about that.
Well, the one about building a framework that creates a plan to identify prioritized.
So that's the specific project thing, but then there was the other one.
There's the one about increased investment in municipalities to harden, improve, and flood, wastewater, drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, and other infrastructure.
To me, that would be more the key because it's much broader based and addresses everything that would have to happen, whereas flood resilient.
Number 10.
Yeah.
This one right here, number 10.
I'm not trying to sell you on it. I'm just telling the difference between like, and you're right. You're right that the flood resilient community thing could become something different. But to my mind, that would be a small subset. It could become the thing, but anyway, I'm not trying to confuse anybody. I'm just,
Well, I
maybe
think-
I should have kept my mouth shut, but.
I think that's really helpful.
And so I don't have set up an easy way to like pick between different rural resilience ones. I think we might even do it by conversation just for a second to see if that works. What I heard Jared say is if top 10 has kind of a powerful ring to it, and if we're at 9 and we could really use another rural resilience one, right, then maybe the idea is that we pick one of these rural resilience ones. We could do that by vote, or we could do it by conversation. Chris would put some chips on this one.
Second that.
Number 10,
Yeah, put some chips on.
Chips in that too.
right?
That one.
And so, and again, we're not diminishing any of the importance of all the other ones, but it sounds like that one is number 10 would be something. And Chris, if I were to, just to be super clear with you, like if you were to elevate one of these, among this one and that one and these two and elevate one of those up to a top 10, would you elevate number 10, this guy?
Probably so, because ultimately that's ultimately like evolve our communities up and away from flood hazards, and that's kind of what has to happen. It's just good smart growth and that's good, actually good conservation policy, because if you got to support where you're going to develop in order to protect the areas you don't.
Just to pile on there, I feel like number 11 is kind of happening, correct? Like it's
That's good, yeah.
It's happening and it's like, yeah, like.
It helps support, it gives direction to what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so just in the interest of time, and also because sometimes these conversations are better than a vote, but, how do people feel about Jared's idea of essentially sticking with the idea of a top 10? We've got a pretty good set of 9 at the top. And if we elevated rural resilience number 10, investing in municipal infrastructure, and that would complete a top 10. It would be spread across our 4 subject areas. Ellie?
Based on what Chris was just saying, and Chris, correct me if this doesn't seem like what you were saying, but based on what Chris was just saying, it almost sounded like rural resilience 10 might be something we would swap up to place the number 3 and then opening up another spot for another rural resilience one, because hearing what Shayla just read of number 15, I feel like that is a really good one that I would like to bump up. So like, have 10 and 15 be the 2 up there for rural resilience and bump the other one down. But I don't know if that fits well with anybody else, but not understanding, that whole like flooding super fund thing or whatever just sounds good, whereas maybe it's not as important as the other.
I guess I feel pretty strongly, given all the changes at FEMA, that having money for buyouts and other things that
That's
the
right.
flood resilient communities pays for right now is a really important gap for the state to.
That could be the vehicle.
It's very ready.
Jane, do you want to just?
I was just gonna suggest that, because I wasn't sure if you were talking with Stephanie, Chris, but in the resilience implementation strategy, the number 1 priority from Vermont Emergency Management is to fund the Resilient Communities Fund. So and to expand upon it based on the way it's defined in the legislature. So
Okay. And Eric?
there you go.
Eric, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, basically the same vein as Chris was talking about. The fund did do a lot of buyouts, but because the buyouts were necessary, but the vision for the fund is much larger, much bigger projects that do much more good across a much bigger area. So I would want to say that it is a little specific as to what has happened in the past, but I think it's the vehicle that we need to be able to do things going forward. And specifically as it relates to FEMA and its inability to pay for things. It is the Flood Resilient Communities Fund and also the new fund that was created last year, but both of them are completely out of money. So putting them back on the agenda makes a lot of sense.
Kelly?
Yeah,
Thanks.
In that vein, I support Jared's recommendation.
So let me just test. How do we feel about that? We may just have landed on a top 10, doing 1 round of voting and some good conversation. To be very super clear, I'll say it one more time. We take the top 9, right? It drops us to where we start getting the 5s, right? And then we elevate rural resilience number 10 to be up our number 10. Okay. Now, these are not structured 1 to 10. We might just we'll see what we do in terms of numbering, because they are not in order necessarily. I think probably you'll end up ordering them so they can tell a story. A little bit what Crick's problem was initially, is like, where's the story here, folks? So let's not assume that this is the order, right, from a prioritization standpoint, but these are a top 10 in which you can start to craft a story. Okay. And then you have a top 50-ish, we'll get what the number is, to tell the bigger story, and then the broader list of all of them to be the super comprehensive. Does that sound okay? Yeah. Yeah. Well done, team. A+. Okay. That worked really well. Thank you. So, all right. So here's where we are. We have a top 50-ish with a number of notes that are going to require a little bit of work this week, right? But we have been able to reduce some anxiety levels by making these changes. We're not saying that we're all ready to, say yes, 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 but we have reduced anxiety and we have some notes to work on. We now have a way of talking about a top 10, which is fantastic. We've got a bunch of work still to do and weekly meetings for the rest of the month. Okay? So, Jane, do you have that? Would you be able to share it on your screen? Okay. Great. So on the 9th, which is a 3-hour in-person virtual meeting next week, By the way, we're all virtual from now on this month. So 3 hours on Monday, we'll get the scenario models. And like I said earlier, to Sheila's question, it's more of like, oh, did we like double check here, team? But yes, we want to see that. The steering committee is going to meet this week and look at potential or suggested edits to the chapters. There's a lot of chapters out there, and this is one way of accelerating the work in the council. The steering committee agreed to do kind of a heavy lift on doing reading and looking at edits, and then we'll present those edits to you next week as a full council for chapters. All right, the substantive chapters, the recommendations chapters, and then some of the other scene setting chapters. All right, and then we'll review not only top 10, but we'll review the top 50 with these edits in them. Okay, that's a lot to do in 3 hours, so we're gonna have to be pretty efficient, but I think we will tee this up in a way so you'll quickly be able to see any changes that happened in this document, as well as we'll get our top 10 clearly shown. That's what we do next week. And then the following week, we've got to deal with all the stuff that needs to start getting written now, like executive summary, a letter to the council. The executive committee has appointed some people to help start that, I think, if I remember.
Steering committee hasn't decided.
The steering committee hasn't figured out how to do that yet.
I don't think they made it, you all made a decision yet about who is writing the letter from the council.
Okay.
Liz.
Perfect. I missed it.
Was Ambler or
No, no. Liz Miller, oh, she co-wrote it last time.
I figured she left early.
Then Will write it.
I'm gonna sign Carrick, he left too.
Yeah,
Oh, he's
Carrick.
still on the screen.
All right.
Here you
So
go.
there's a number of things that we need to look at that are gonna come out that are part of wrapping this thing up with a bow, including land acknowledgement, some other stuff that's going on. So there are people assigned to most of these, but apparently not all of them yet, and they will be. But we need June 16th to go through all this. And then we need June 23rd to do any quick double checks on what happened in the legislature in the end, and then a formal adoption of the plan. Okay, so let's talk about this formal adoption of the plan. As you've seen, we didn't like do any voting or anything on the top 50, but we did get a sense of where the room was at and the edits that were needed. Right? We're not going to do a formal adoption of the plan until the 23rd. That's when we'll activate our decision-making protocol. We'll see if there's consensus on it. Right? We'll give people, just like we did the last time, the opportunity to write something, and we can include that as an annex where the plan is posted. So if you can say, you know, I supported the adoption of this plan, but I just need you to know that this particular thing I think is not working well. And so that's each of you as counselors has the ability to write up a little something that included in the annex the plan, the same way you did last time. You remember that? Okay.
I can put on in the chat sort of examples of that from the initial plan. So folks who weren't on the council the first time can see that. And then I would also strongly encourage folks just to review the governance document because, and including our facilitator and everybody about, we painstakingly described voting in that. So I think we should all look at that in case we have to go to voting.
So we have a governance document that lays out a voting protocol, if we need it, and how we're gonna do that. It doesn't say on what unit are we voting. So it doesn't say like, we're gonna vote for each chapter or each whatever, right? But so what I'm gonna suggest is that we don't do that. We did that last time around, right? Because we were like in the sweat, the weeds of the detail right at the end. I suggest we don't go sort of pathway by pathway or chapter by chapter. Instead, we just do the plan. The whole kit and caboodle.
Feels like we're closer this time than we were.
It feels like we've had more time to sort of get the content a little settled. So let's do the whole plan, the whole rigmarole. We have the escape valve that each of you has the ability to write something. And you know, if there's something within the plan that's irritating you or you think is inappropriate, you can write that. And that you can choose whether you want to vote to adopt the plan or not. Okay, that's it. What else? What am I forgetting? Yeah. Rich,
23rd meeting, virtual or in person?
everything's virtual.
And is that scheduled for what hours? Do we have it?
It's the usual.
Seen the.
Let me check, see all those invites are out. Yep, the invites are out. They are the usual time.
Okay.
Thanks, David, for all your help.
Yeah, that's.
Thank you.
I always like to end on a round of applause. We got a top 10, folks. That was really quite something else. So thank you. Online participants, heroes to do that online. Thank you for sticking with us. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody.